7 LSU Tigers were drafted over the weekend. We've got everything you need to know about how they fit in their new homes. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making it your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. Today's show is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. 7 LSU Tigers were taken in the 2025 NFL Draft, and there were some with historical significance, which we'll get to. I understand most people lock in on the first round of the draft, naturally. We were all very interested to see what would happen with Will Campbell, as he did, in fact, go 4th overall to the New England Patriots. But let's be honest, the weekend goes along. It's a 3-day event. Saturday, the final day, went from 11 a.m. until about 6 o'clock in the evening. So about 7 full hours of your day of picks coming and going, and people are going about their day. So that's why we're here, to tell you where the Tigers went and how they fit in each of their new spots. Let's start at the very top with Will Campbell. As you know, went 4th overall to the New England Patriots. Interestingly enough, this represents the first time New England has ever taken an LSU player in the first round of the draft. Listen, Will Campbell has incredible pedigree, as we all know, becomes the highest drafted offensive lineman in LSU history. The first time, if you look at LSU alums drafted by the Patriots, Kevin Falk was the highest up until this point, was 46th overall. Tommy Hotson was 59th overall back in 1990. The late Marquise Hill, 2004, was 63rd overall. Stephen Ridley, 73rd overall, if you look at the highest drafted LSU players to the New England Patriots. But when he was widely regarded, of course, as the number 1 tackle in the draft as it went by, and the Patriots were in dire need of help on the offensive line to protect Drake May. A year ago, the Patriots had one of their worst offensive lines in franchise history, and they were one of the worst lines in all of football. So while they added Morgan Moses in free agency, they needed a blind side protector for Drake May. So let's not get this confused in any way. The New England Patriots did not draft Will Campbell to come in and play guard. There are clearly no issues about his arm length. He is the left tackle blind side protector for Drake May. They have their franchise quarterback. Now they have their franchise left tackle. A really cool story when we got into day 2, when Mason Taylor was early off the board in round 2, 42nd overall to the New York Jets. Now, we all remember his dad, Jason Taylor, the Pro Football Hall of Fame defensive end from the Miami Dolphins. But Jason Taylor, late in his career, played for the New York Jets. And actually, a very cool picture surfaced over the weekend of a young Mason Taylor there in the Meadowlands wearing his Jason Taylor jersey, Jets jersey, watching a Jets game. So that was really cool to see. 6'5", 250, we know plenty about Mason Taylor. What you may not know is what the Jets have. Well, incumbent tight end Jeremy Ruckert would kind of be the primary competition there heading into training camp. But if Mason Taylor is able to do what he did consistently at LSU, which is catch the football and get open and catch the football, he should be the plug-and-play starter at tight end for the New York Jets here as a rookie. Interestingly enough, Matt Miller from ESPN compared him favorably to Zach Ertz of the Washington Commanders. If Mason Taylor has the type of career Zach Ertz has, would be incredible. I've said many times I think he is the biggest riser, maybe the biggest sleeper in this draft among the LSU players. He went 42nd overall, but I think Mason Taylor just got overshadowed by Colston Loveland out of Michigan and Tyler Warren out of Penn State in a very high-end tight end class. In another year where maybe those elite players weren't in the draft class, Mason Taylor could have very easily been a first-round pick. I mean, he's 10 slots away from being a first-round pick as it is. So congrats to Mason Taylor. Also on day 2, round 3, Emory Jones went to the Baltimore Ravens. He would be one of 2 offensive linemen from LSU to go to the Ravens. More on that in just a quick second. But the interesting thing about the Ravens, when you do a little bit of digging in what they favor, we all know Lamar Jackson, we know the high-flying offense, but they want big, physical, burly offensive tackles. That's what they want. They don't necessarily worry about polish. They want big physical tackles. This defines Emory Jones to a T. The question is whether or not he stays at tackle or guard. When you look at maybe some of the lack of refinement, and by the way, my feeling on Emory Jones this season was by and large some of his struggles were the fact that he suffered that ankle injury against UCLA that we never really talked about much after. And I think he was playing on a bum ankle and less than 100%, but you're going to do that in a 17-game NFL season. So Jones, whether he moves inside or stays at tackle, will be interesting, but just keep in mind that the franchise that drafted him doesn't want finesse tackles. They want burly road grading tackles, and that fits Emory Jones to a T. He went in round 3. And then maybe one of the interesting picks was that Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos traded back in to the 3rd round to take Savion Jones, 6'6", 283-pounder. It was interesting because there was so much of the narrative about Sean Payton not loving LSU players during his time with the New Orleans Saints. But here you have it. My contention has long been that it wasn't that the Saints don't draft LSU players, that Sean Payton didn't like LSU players. There has to be a spot in the draft where there's a player you want at a position of need, and for all of those things to work together to have a player from a certain school land at your spot, it just doesn't always work out that way. And I think that's largely been the case with the Saints and with LSU players, or Sean Payton and LSU players, as evidence here by the fact that they took Savion Jones. There's an ascending sort of talent here with good size and athleticism that we know with Savion Jones, who every year at LSU continue to get better. But defensive linemen Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, and Malcolm Roach, remember him, Saints fans? They're all in the final year of their deals. So Allen, it is expected he'll get re-signed, but the Broncos are going to need some replacements. And remember also who the Broncos defensive line coach is, Jamar Cain, former LSU defensive line coach. So a lot of connective tissue there that led the Broncos to move back into round 3 to take Savion Jones. Then, as we moved into day 3, Savion Jones's counterpart, Braden Swinson, on the other edge, was the first pick for the LSU players on day 3. The Carolina Panthers traded down, and at 146 is where Swinson would come off the board. He was as high as I saw it, as a top 70 overall player. But Swinson started his career at Oregon, transferred to LSU, had a 90.3 pass rush grade. The interesting thing about Swinson is when you look at, and forgive me, I should mention that the Panthers, it was their trade down, landed this pick with the New England Patriots. So Swinson is going to New England forgive me. New England inherited the pick from the Panthers as part of their 3rd round trade down, is what I should have said. So Swinson got picked at number 146 overall to the Patriots, and a pick from the Panthers, I should say, is the best way of saying it. Forgive me if there was any confusion there. Well, you have Harold Landry and Caleb Chasson heading to Gillette Stadium this year as well to be part of the New England Patriots. But you add a young player here in Braden Swinson. The interesting thing for me about Swinson, of course, is the fact that he was such a specialist pass rusher his first year, his first couple of seasons in Baton Rouge. But in 2024, he became an every down defensive end and actually a very good run stuffing defensive end as well, despite his frame being more prototypical edge rusher. So Swinson to New England is interesting, and he'll join Will Campbell there. The final 2 picks came later in day 3, one in round 6, one in round 7, and they were both offensive linemen. The Detroit Lions traded up from 182 to 171. They traded up 11 picks to select Miles Frazier. So this is clear. Look, if in round 6 you're going to move up 11 spots, it's very clear you have a high grade on this player, and you're not going to risk him coming off the board 11 spots before you take him. So Detroit wanted him. They gave up one of their 7th round picks to go up to get Miles Frazier. The second lineman that the Lions took in the draft, joining Tate Ratledge out of Georgia, who they took in round 2. So clearly the Lions looking for some youth and some fortification on their line for Jared Goff. And by many accounts, great value for Frazier, who many thought might be a 4th or 5th round pick. The fact that he lasted that late into round 6 was interesting. Dane Brugler had him as the 81st best prospect overall in the draft, and the Lions got him at number 171. So Frazier, a versatile guy that can play inside or out, helps the Lions get younger on the offensive line, of course, with Tate Ratledge. And then finally, Garrett Dellinger became the 4th LSU offensive lineman picked, and he will join his offensive line teammate, Emory Jones, in Baltimore, who, remember, we talked about Baltimore wanting physical, bruising offensive tackles. Well, there's a thought, do they move Emory Jones into guard? If not, or if they don't move one of their existing tackles into guard, then Garrett Dellinger could be an opportunity as one of LSU's better linemen over the last 3 years. But Dellinger played just 7 games this past season after that ankle injury cost him the remainder of his season. But 7 LSU Tigers drafted, all seemingly in very good spots with chances to make their team. So we'll keep an eye on it as they get to rookie camp, training camp ultimately, and as we get toward their rookie seasons in the NFL. But congrats to the 7 guys that were selected and those undrafted free agents that'll get a chance at their next spot. The LSU baseball Tigers got a series win over Tennessee. What does it all mean? We'll talk about it as we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team, diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com, claim your $250 in bonus bets today. That's at FanDuel.com. The LSU baseball Tigers took care of Tennessee over the weekend. What a dramatic series win it was. By the way, thank you to everyone who joined us on the post-game live streams here on Locked on LSU. On Sunday, when LSU run-ruled Tennessee 12-2, we hit our peak concurrent viewers of 1,015 concurrent viewers. I share that not as a flex or to brag, but only more so to brag on all of you to say, suffice to say that there's no other fan base in America that would have 1,000 concurrent viewers on a post-game live stream for a regular season baseball game on a Sunday. But that's why LSU baseball is incredible. Game 1 was dueling aces, with Cade Anderson and Liam Doyle, and boy, did that live up to the billing. It was absolutely spectacular to see Anderson go 7 1/3, 11 strikeouts in that game. Doyle was just as good. He no-hit LSU through 5 2/3, but ultimately LSU would put up the big 6th spot in the 6th, the 6th spot in the 9th, the dramatic comeback to Jared Jones homer, and that's something we'll remember for a long time. Saturday's game, where you had 2 other excellent starters. Anthony Ianson was magnificent for much of the game, but the offense struggled, even though LSU did get back-to-back home runs in the bottom of the 7th to pull within 3-2. It looked like LSU might have some more magic, but a 6-run 8th for Tennessee in game 2 even the series. So then the question came to, what were you going to do in game 3? And ultimately, they started Case and Evans. And I know the biggest question that everyone has now is that, does this mean Case and Evans is going to be a part of the rotation moving forward? And my contention is going to be not necessarily. The biggest Achilles heel that this LSU team has right now clearly is the bullpen, and there's 2 guys you count on. That's not to say there aren't more guys that have pitched well at times and can continue to grow and develop and pitch well, but there's 2 guys you count on. It's Case and Evans, and it's Zach Cowan. So I would pose this hypothetical to you. Let's say LSU this weekend goes to Texas A&M, game 1 on Friday, and LSU's winning 3-2. Let's just say it's the same situation from this last weekend with Cade Anderson going 7 1/3. Let's say you go 7 1/3 and LSU's up 3-2. Who are you going to get? Well, you're going to get either Cowan or Case and Evans to finish the game for you. And let's say the same situation unfolds in game 2, that Anthony Ianson gives you 6 solid innings and you need to get home. Well, who are you going to? Case and Evans or Zach Cowan, whichever one you didn't use the day before. Like, the point is, if you have a chance to win a game on any given day in the SEC, you're going to do whatever you have to do to win that game because they all count the same. So you're going to use those guys if you need to. Now, if there's a situation that arises like this past weekend against Tennessee, where you get to Sunday and Case and Evans hasn't pitched and Cowan threw only 13 pitches on Friday, then sure, start Zach Cowan. He showed you he's capable of extending and giving you 6 innings. And it was also fantastic to see, after He allowed 3 hits in the first and 2 runs and was really shaky, to go throw up 5 zeros after that and allowing just 2 base runners in the next 5 innings. It was awesome to see. He showed you what he's capable of, even bouncing back after some early adversity, which I don't think is surprising because we've watched Casey Evans be a really impactful guy since the opening weekend of this season, really since the first game of the season. He was the first pitcher out of the bullpen game 1 against Purdue Fort Wayne. So I think Evans could be your solution, provided he hasn't thrown in the first 2 games. But you're not going to hold him. Like, Jay Johnson isn't going to send to the league office the projected probable starters on Thursday and have Casey Evans as the probable starter for Sunday. I think they would leave it TBA more than anything. Because if you need Evans on Friday or Saturday, games 1 or 2, you're going to use him and not say, well, we're going to wait and hold him to start on game 3. If you have a chance to win games 1 or 2, you absolutely use him there. It was also interesting this weekend. It seems like maybe the message about Jake Brown has gotten through, as Brown started all 3 games against Tennessee for LSU. And of course, his 3-run homer in the bottom of the second put LSU up 5-2. And it was a massive blow at the time after Tennessee had gotten up 2-0. And then LSU had that big charge and then never looked back. I'll just repeat the refrain I've had all year, which is Jake Brown's one of the best players, maybe your best player on the team. When you're looking at tools, he is a 5-tool guy. He has elite glove, arm, hits for average, hits for power, speed. He's your best defensive right fielder who makes you better defensively. He's a stolen base threat when he gets on base. He can hit for power. As you saw, the home run was an opposite field home run, and he can hit for average. He is fantastic and needs to be in your lineup every day. And what we saw on Sunday in game 3 was sort of a platoon at DH, where Josh Pearson got the start, to have a lefty in the lineup against the righty. And then whenever Tennessee went to a lefty, Ethan Fry got an at-bat to put a right-handed bat in the lineup, drew a walk. And then whenever they went back to a righty, Ashton Larson came off the bench, and he struck out and then got a single. So I think that's probably the path that's most sensible moving forward. But Jake Brown has to be in your lineup every day. If you're an everydayer, and shout out to you, you've heard me say it, you're now seeing it manifest. I think Jay Johnson tried to give the platoon as much runway as he can, but we've gone over this many times. When you look at the conference-only statistics, and Ethan Fry is hitting about 100 points lower in the SEC than he is overall. When your league batting average is around 240, that's very telling. And when you have a guy that's hitting 300, the guy that's hitting 300 in conference play needs to play every day. So same thing with Michael Braswell at third. It's put an end to that platoon, and it should be in right as well, because I'm not saying there won't be a one-off where Jay's going to play Fry or start Fry DH or start Pearson in right. But in my opinion, the same way that you take a Sharpie every day and you write Derek Curiel in left and Chris Stanfield in center and Daniel Dickinson at second and Jared Jones at first, except for when you play him at third, and Stephen Milam at short. Like, you figured out your catcher situation as well with Luis Hernandez behind the dish, although Aaron Beatty has caught Aints in the last 2 weeks. So should it be with Jake Brown and right. Like, you have found your best 9. You know who they are. You want a platoon DH? Fine. But your starters everywhere else seem set right now. 3 weekends to go, and I'll tell you, this one's going to be interesting. We'll talk about the A&M series as we get closer, but A&M just got swept at Texas. And considering A&M had been ascending over the last month after the devastating start, to be swept at Texas was a big surprise. Texas was without Jared Spencer, their ace, who we learned this week was lost for the season. A&M was, again, ascending, playing very well, playing with a lot of confidence. And A&M had all the motivation in the world, considering they were going up against their former coach, Jim Schlossnagle, who left them for Texas, and now you had Texas on the schedule. This certainly felt like a weekend where Texas was ripe for the picking and A&M would rise up, and instead the opposite happened. It was 3 very close games, 3 one-run games, and Texas won them all in their home field. So you tip your cap to the Longhorns, but LSU gets an Aggies team now. It'll be interesting. Are they wounded and down and out, or are they backed into a corner and desperate and come out swinging? So, but the Tigers at 14-7 have themselves pacing very nicely toward a national seed with 3 weekends to go. And your final weekend, while it's on the road, it's against South Carolina, who's the second worst team in the conference behind only Missouri. And you have an Arkansas team who in 2 weeks, who has now all of a sudden lost 3 weekends in a row after at one point being the number 1 team in the country. So you have and Arkansas is in Baton Rouge, by the way. So you have a manageable final 9 games You need to win 6 of these final 9. You get 6 of these final 9, you go to the SEC tournament knowing you're a national seed, and you can just get yourself ready for postseason play. Okay, it is Locked on LSU, your team every day. Something else that happened late last week and over the weekend was a pretty big get for Kim Mulkey. We'll wrap up with that as we continue to Locked on LSU, your team every day. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. And with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. I love Gametime for 2 primary reasons. Number one, all-in pricing. There's no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. And also the last-minute deals. You can buy last minute right up to tip-off, right up to kickoff for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and you can save up to 60% with those last-minute deals. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Kim Mulkey got another gigantic get out of the transfer portal late last week. South Carolina guard Malaysia Fulwiley is transferring to LSU. She announced that on social media late Friday. One of the most coveted players in the transfer portal. So Fulwiley spent her first 2 seasons at South Carolina, so she'll be a junior this year in Baton Rouge. Right after South Carolina lost the national title game to UConn, she went into the portal, and she was really a massive part of Dawn Staley's rotation this past season. Now, she came off the bench, but averaged nearly 12 points a game, nearly 3 rebounds, 2 assists, played 19 minutes per game. Those are almost identical to the numbers she posted in her freshman season. But keep in mind, this is a very talented team that played in the national championship game in back-to-back seasons, winning it a year ago and then losing to UConn this year. She started just 3 games, but played in 77 during 2 seasons with the Gamecocks. So really build that role as a 6th man coming off the bench, and really was instant offense off the bench. Could finish in transition. She shot 43% from the field, 30% from 3 over the past 2 seasons, which you'd like to see that average come up a little bit. The one concern, I'll use that loosely, is LSU already has a very guard-heavy squad. You've got Flau'jae, you've got Michaela Williams, but even if it's a similar role coming off the bench to be instant offense off the bench, you do it. But make no mistake, you lose Anissa Morrow, that is a big 3 that you have. What will be interesting, LSU has lost 5 players via the portal. And of course, you have other players like Anissa Morrow who've exhausted their eligibility. So in all the players you've lost, either to eligibility or to the portal, the Tigers lost all 5 of their forwards and centers. So you've added Kate Koval, former 5-star out of Notre Dame, and Amaya Joyner as well. So you've touched on that, but you get the number 1 freshman signing class in the country coming in as well. But it is fair to wonder about your front court and what Kate Koval can do coming in from Notre Dame. Clearly, she's going to be asked to shoulder a large burden with Aaliyah Del Rosario transferring out, with Jersey Wolfenbarger transferring out as well, with Anissa Morrow being out of eligibility. You're going to need size. You're going to need a presence in the front court. Kate Koval is going to give you that. But Malaysia Fulwiley coming from South Carolina, one of the biggest gets in the transfer portal for any team this year. And Kim Mulkey continues doing work as she tries to rebuild this roster toward another national championship. But getting Flau'jae and Michaela Williams back for another season, a senior year for Flau'jae, a junior year for Michaela Williams, and adding what you've done in the freshman class in the portal is going to have Kim Mulkey's squad right back in the mix again in the 2025-2026 season. Okay, that'll do it for us here on today's episode of Locked On LSU. Do me a favor. Thanks so much, by the way, for making this your first listen every single day. If you are listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.